Welcome to the Ambitious Introvert podcast, created especially for introverts, empaths, and highly sensitive entrepreneurs to help you build, grow, and scale a successful, sustainable business. I'm your host, Emma-Louise Parks, business and mindset coach for ambitious introverts. After 17 years working as an air traffic controller, the ultimate fast-paced, high-stimulus, extrovert-friendly role, my mission now is to show introverts that they too can create big results and success because of who they are, not in spite of it. I focus on introvert-friendly business and marketing strategy to help you switch overwhelm for clarity, confidence, and clients. Hi guys, welcome to this week's episode of the Ambitious Introvert podcast with me, Emma-Louise, and my very special guest today is Lottie. Now, Lottie and I met on Instagram when I reached out to her for a card reading because so many of my friends had this amazing card reading that they were all raving about. And though I've kind of dipped into some oracle cards myself, I've never really got into it. I've been interested in tarot since I was younger. I would say I'm fairly intuitive, but definitely not psychic. And I just found Lottie's whole approach really interesting. So I thought I'd bring her onto the show to share with you guys really what it means to be intuitive and to have those abilities and how it can help us, but also hinder us in our business. So Lottie, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here.
Tell the listeners a little bit about you and your business and who you serve.
Okay, so my business is Lottie's Leap and I'm predominantly on Instagram. I describe myself as an intuitive guide and tarot and oracle reader. And basically the people I serve right now is business women, predominantly entrepreneurs, business owners, coaches, thought leaders, everybody in that sphere really. Just helping people to connect to their intuition, but also to receive spiritual guidance through the cards and through my intuition.
So something that is quite popular, I think, is oracle cards. I see them around quite a lot, people doing card pulls. But what I've noticed is that there's a little bit more resistance when you say tarot. Do you find that with people?
Definitely. There's this kind of an old belief I feel hanging around about tarot being from the fairs. When you used to go to an old fair and there used to be like a psychic with a crystal ball and she was always quite scary. And they're afraid of getting a horrible message, like a dark message from the cards, because there is some cards in the tarot which do seem quite dark and frightening, but actually they're not. They've all got their own special message and it's not necessarily like a bad message. But what I love about tarot is that it gives you so much to work with. There's so much information in the tarot cards and definitely people are scared of them, but I'm trying to change people's minds a little bit. Whereas oracle is very positive. There's always a really nice message from the oracle, whereas the tarot gives you lots of tools to work with, but they're not necessarily all sunshine and rainbows.
Yeah, I feel like the oracle's definitely a lot more accessible to people that are just dipping their toe into this. But I remember having a tarot reading when I was a teenager, actually. And I mean, the woman was so lovely that it wasn't scary at all. But the death card came up and I remember being like, oh no. And she's like, no, it's not about, it's about rebirth. It's about a change. It's not about death like we think of death. So I can really see how people might misconstrue the meaning of them.
Yeah. And death card is one of my favorite cards. And every time it comes out, I'm like, yay, death card, because it means rebirth. So it means that we're ending something, a cycle is finishing up and we're moving into a new cycle. And I see that as a really positive thing. So as soon as I pull a death card for a client, and I always have to reassure them that this is not bad. This is actually a really good sign.
So how did you first become interested in oracle and tarot, or how did you realize that you had these intuitive gifts?
It's funny because when I was growing up, I always felt like there was something else there, but I never really could put my finger on what it was. I spent a lot of time alone when I was a kid, but I always felt like I was with other people in a funny kind of way. So I always felt there was people with me all the time. And then I realized growing up that I felt like I was connected to angel energy or something like that. I couldn't put my finger on it. And then a few years back, I was in a little shop, you know, those type of shops where they have the crystals and incense and all of this type of thing. And I seen the cards, I seen a deck of oracle cards, and I just felt really drawn to them, got the cards. And ever since then, they're literally part of my everyday. And I have my favorite decks, and I have decks that I only use every now and then. And then I have my tarot, which is like my best friend. So yeah, it was like intuitive. I just kind of ended up in this shop and saw them. I felt drawn to them, and it's kind of been my journey since then. It's been quite a few years.
That thing about being drawn, I think, is so important, because I've got an amazing crystal shop just down the road from me, literally around the corner. I'm so blessed. And they're one of the big suppliers of crystals and New Age books online. So it's quite a big shop, and they've got all kinds of things. And I was with my friend Rebecca Cross, who is a spiritual business coach and theta healer, and she is, you know, very connected to source and spirit, you know, extremely psychic. And we're in the shop and we're looking at the crystals, and I just touched my fingers on this set of oracle cards, and she's like, you have to buy them. Well, actually it was Rebecca said, you have to fucking buy them now. And I was like, what? And she's like, if you're drawn to them, like you've been drawn to them, buy them. I was like, okay. So that's how I ended up with my first deck.
But that is intuition. That is intuition. And I think it can be difficult for people to understand what intuition is and how to tap into their own intuition. But that's it. It's that simple. It's that feeling that you have to do something, or you have to touch something, or you have to buy something. It's that feeling. That's the intuition.
It's like being drawn, isn't it? And where we in life so often we think and decide, it's not so much what do I think I should do, it's what do I feel like I should do, even if it doesn't make any sense whatsoever.
Completely. And that's why people struggle to trust it, because it has no rhyme or reason. It's just a feeling that we feel that we have to do this thing. And that's what's great about it as well, because it's very individualized. It's very unique to you. That it's like your own little special superpower and gift, what you can tap into whenever you want.
And definitely we were speaking just before we hit record about how a lot of introverts and empaths are highly intuitive, and we've got a very rich inner world, and we're very aware. And then if you add high sensitivity into the mix, which Lottie and I both are, you almost have that extra dimension of, you get a feeling for things, you're picking up on other people's energy, you know when something's not quite right. It's that whole trust in the gut, which I think definitely as we age can get lost in society.
And I think that nowadays, especially because of social media, there's a lot of, I should be doing it like somebody else, I should be following the rules, this comparison to how other people are leading their life, and we get lost and we forget to tap into ourselves and our own intuition. And talking about highly sensitive people and empaths, that is really kind of adding to your intuition. You're almost honing a skill there, but we almost knock it off as being like a bad thing, a negative thing to be highly sensitive or empathic, when really, you're adding an extra skill there. It's great if you're working with people, because you can really feel what they're feeling. I just think it's a great gift to have.
I always tell my clients just to be really mindful of what they consume online and really curate their social media. So if you need to unfollow people, mute people, then do it, because it does get overwhelming, because you are absorbing this energy of people, and maybe you see a negative post that kind of upsets you or something that triggers you. It can be really hard to bounce back from that. One of the things that people struggle with a lot, I think, like our type of people, is this content creation, because they consume so much of other people's that they end up just regurgitating something the same, or it feels a bit weird. And I always say, like, just stop consuming and you will write and create much better content. Like, I will never look at social media the day that I'm writing my content, because it needs to come from me and not what I've absorbed from everyone else.
Yeah, you're taking on somebody else's voice. And,
Yeah.
when you're talking about empaths, because we take on so much other people's ideas as well as other people's feelings, we just suck it all in. And then we're almost, like you say, regurgitating what they said already. So, yeah,
So
I completely agree.
how did you come to be working with entrepreneurs?
I felt like there was nobody, I didn't see anybody else online who was doing like spiritual guidance or intuitive guidance or tarot or oracle with business leaders or business owners, entrepreneurs. I just felt like there was like this gap, and being an entrepreneur myself, I didn't see anyone out there who I could connect to who was specific for that area. And I just feel like I'm kind of hoping that I'm breaking down a few barriers here, because people feel like if you're in business, you can't be spiritual, and spiritual tools can't help a business, which I think is completely incorrect. So I'm kind of like trying to merge the two together.
I love that. A friend of mine who's going to be on the podcast soon, Carrie Cardozo, she's the business psychic, and she does the similar things, and she works with corporations. And she said people almost expect her to turn up, looking like she's going to a festival and covered in tattoos. Most of the time she's like, I'm in ripped jeans and a t-shirt because I've got 3 kids. And, I've just been to soccer or whatever. And it's funny because it's this, like you say, breaking it down, like you don't have to look a certain way or be a certain way. And we don't have to put spirituality in one box and then business strategy in another one.
Exactly. I think it's so interesting to merge the two together. I work with so many business women who are like pre-launch or mid-launch, and they really need some sort of guidance that's almost outside of themselves. They can't put their finger on what the guidance is they need, but they need to talk to somebody to help them to level up or to succeed in a launch, because there's something getting in their way. So I think it's really important that they can tap into like intuitive or a spiritual guide or the cards to help them along their way. It doesn't always have to be contacting a coach and working on the strategy. Sometimes we need something outside of that.
So if anyone's listening and they're thinking like, yes, this is maybe what I need, I'm feeling a bit lost, or I'd like some kind of direction that's not, following a formula or from a coach, what does it look like to actually get a reading from you? How do you work with people?
Basically, it's very much tailored to the individual. So I go with whatever they need. You meet with me beforehand, whether it's in the DMs or an email, and we chat about the area, what you're trying to find out more information about. For example, if you're launching a product and you feel like a little bit fearful about this launch, you're scared it's not going to go well. So that's what we're going to focus our reading on. And then during the reading, generally before I start, I tap into your energy and the energy from your guides or any spiritual energy that I'm getting beforehand. And I channel any kind of messages that you need to know. So I channel that message, and then I start to work with the cards to ask the cards questions around the topic that you're struggling with. For example, if you're struggling with a launch, you feel like it's not going so well and you don't understand why it's not going so well, we look at the energy, like what's stopping things from going well. Like it could be something in your subconscious, you're putting up a barrier that's stopping you from, like you're almost self-sabotaging your own launch. Imposter syndrome, things like this, what come up. We work around that energy and use the cards to answer any questions we have. And then we look at the energy going forward. How can we make the energy a successful energy for this launch? And we ask the tarot about that. So it's like a mixture of channeled messages from your guides, from my guides, from the cards. And it's all it just all comes into one and together.
Guys, have you joined the Facebook group yet? If not, head on over there, the Ambitious Introvert Network. The link is in the show notes. And I would love to have you there because I am so passionate about giving you ambitious introverts this space where you can go and be yourself. You can promote your offers, you can share your services, you can share your content, you can intro yourself, you can build relationships with other ambitious introverts, all in this introvert friendly safe space that I've created, and nothing would make me happier than to have you join. We also have weekly introvert co-working sessions. We do free weekly hot seat group coaching, and you'll find content and video training in there that you can't get anywhere else outside of the group. So head over, join us today, introduce yourself, and become a really active part of the Ambitious Introvert Network. Do you really feel the people's energy, even though they're not present with you? So like you say, you might meet in the DMs. I know when we did mine, we had like a couple of voice notes, and then I messaged you some questions, and then you sent me about 50 voice notes back with all of the info and the photographs. But obviously I wasn't there when you were doing it. I didn't know when you were doing it. We didn't have a physical connection at the time. But are you still able to really take on that person's energy?
Yeah, it's crazy because sometimes I feel what they're feeling. Like I had a lady and she felt like, I said that I feel like choked, like I can't speak or something, I can't get my words out. It was a feeling I was getting. And then after, when she replied to the reading, she said, oh, I've been really struggling to like get my words out this week in like meetings. I don't know what I need to say. So like I really feel it. It's the empathic side again. It's almost like merged with the intuitive. So yeah, I always manage to tap into the energy. I can't explain it. I did a post about this before. I don't know how I do it. It just happens. I just know, and I'm able to take on the energy.
I was going to say without going too woo, but I think we're probably there already. But a friend of mine had a reattunement for Reiki, having had, been attuned years ago, but had a reattunement, but had it done at distance. So was here in the UK, and the person the master carrying out the reattunement was in the States, and did it remotely. And he felt when it was being done, he knew, even though he didn't know, he knew. He said he was sat on the sofa and he felt it, and he knew that it was that kind of 25-minute slot. And then she'd emailed later with her findings of, what she felt in the reattunement. And he was like, no, it wasn't that time, because she put it was a certain time. He was like, no, that wasn't me. And then she was like, oh, no, you're right. I got it mixed up with the other one that I did, because he said he knew, he could just feel it. And she hadn't told him in advance when it was going to be.
Yeah, it's so crazy, and it's so hard to explain that to people. Like, it's not something you can write down and say, this is what we do and this is how we do it. It's just I was going to say it's such an empathic thing, but it really is. Like, you just know. And I often take on like feelings in someone's body quite a lot, like butterflies I had last week with a lady, because she was actually quite excited about something. Wow. And I could feel it, and I was like, oh my god, I feel really excited. And sometimes I start to shuffle my cards faster because I can feel like their energy is excited. So yeah, it's interesting but hard to explain.
Yeah, I know when you did mine and you came back, and because we hadn't connected before, so you didn't really know anything about me or my business, and you were like, oh, like all these ones came up, like every card was a one, and then you were like, I did the numerology on it, and everything was coming back to a 3, and I don't know why, and I'm like, that's my life number, and because I'd had all my numerology done earlier in the year, and so much of it connected in. But it was so funny to hear you going, like, I don't understand why, but everything's coming back to 3. And then you said, I don't understand why, but I've got this hermit. And I was like, that's because I'm an introvert. I am the hermit. And then you were like, yes, that makes sense then. But, obviously you didn't know any of this stuff before.
Yeah, it's like I say, it's so weird and so hard to explain. And I feel like a lot of those are messages what I receive from somewhere. Like, I get a message. I was talking to somebody in a reading last week, and I said to her, I have this like feeling or message that you're going to work with like business women, and she's like in an office and there's all glass on the side of the office. And she said, that's what I wrote in my vision like 1 year ago, that I was working with this business lady, and she's in this big glass office in the city. And I was just like, I don't know how it happens. It just happens.
I can't explain it.
No.
It's just there.
Yeah, it's so funny.
Oh, I just find it so interesting. So when you're working with entrepreneurs, that must be really interesting because obviously we are all in charge of our own business. There's no one set way to do it. So that must be really varied in what people approach you with or what they're looking for answers to.
Yeah, I love it. That's another reason why I love working with business owners and entrepreneurs, because day to day they have so much to deal with, like whether it's marketing or their strategy or how they're putting themselves out there or their vision and where they want to go to next. And there's just so much to work with. I love working with women who are like up leveling themselves. You know, their business is growing and they're taking the next steps, and how can they take the next steps? And we look at how they can harness their energy to go to the next step, or anything what comes up in the cards to help them work on some lessons that they need to learn right now in order to go to the next step. I just think it's so interesting. I just feel very connected to the business area of things, especially women in business. It's just what I love to do. I love to work in that area specifically.
And what do you do around protecting your energy? So we discussed the empathic nature, and that's great if you do a reading where someone's excited and you can come out with butterflies. But obviously, you could take on some energy that's not so great for you. Do you have any rituals, or do you limit the amount of readings that you do per week?
Yeah, it's taken some time to kind of get it right. At first, I was doing so many readings, and then I was wondering why I was so exhausted. And it wasn't from doing the readings, it was from taking on so much energy from everybody else. And I was just finding I was really, really drained. I do a ritual which is cord cutting. I don't know if you've heard about it.
No.
You can do like a meditation. You'll find one on YouTube. Just write in cord cutting. Basically, you're cutting the cords and what's connecting you to somebody else's energy. It's really good for empaths. Like even if you did it in the evening, like you've had your full day of work or whatever, you've been working on your business, it takes maybe 3 to 4 minutes. You can listen to it. You can just do it by reading it and then just remembering to do it. And you're just cutting the energy from the person you've been dealing with that day. It's really good. Some people connect it to Archangel Michael because he's really good at protecting energy. So you can do it with him, or you can just do a cord cutting. So I always do that after a session. I cut it. I cut any negative energy or any energy connecting me to someone else. Outside, I always go outside. It's my go-to. As soon as I finish readings, I'm outside for a walk, because nature is just so good at just like replenishing energy and getting rid of any negative energy. So yeah, they're my 2 favorites.
And that's a really important message, I think, for any introvert, empath, or highly sensitive in business, because I've got coach friends that are extrovert that say do business strategy and things, and they'll just have clients back to back to back, 6, 7 client calls, one after the other, 10 minutes in between, like not a problem. But where I'm doing stuff like NLP and EFT and deeper work, it can be exhausting. I'm like, no, I need at least half an hour, if not 45 minutes in between. And then I like the same as you. I've got to have a big drink of water. I try and get outside. I'll be, do some stretches, because I've really got to reset my energy again before the next person.
Yeah. And I think it's so important to have plenty of self-care. And I don't mean like you're going to get a bubble bath every night or whatever, because people think of self-care and they think of that automatically. But I always do things like get outside, go for a walk, spend time with myself a little bit. I love things like yoga, healing sessions, Reiki. I just mix it up. Breathwork, meditation. I make sure I include bits and pieces every single day to just keep my energy up there so I can continue to serve others. But like you say, I'm like max 2 readings a day now. It's too much for me to do any more than that. So, and we're spending a lot of time with laptops, mobile phones, electrical devices were also giving us this energy as well. So
Yeah, Saturday I didn't open the laptop at all and was barely on my phone, and it was amazing. That is definitely something
So
I need
good.
to do more of. I love that you mentioned breath work because that's something that I've really gotten into lately, and
Love
I've
it.
been mixing it up with my EFT. So I did 3 EFT clients last week and incorporated some breath work into it. It was really powerful.
I love it so much. I start my day with it, with breath work. I just find it so energizing, empowering. It's great as well if you do it in the evening, if you're trying to wind down.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just so good. I love it.
Oh, fabulous. Well, I love how passionate you are about helping other women grow businesses. I love how it's not the typical way of, hire a coach or get a strategy, but you're supporting them with their intuition. If any ambitious introverts that are listening now are building and growing online businesses, which book would you recommend to them to help them on their journey?
Okay, so I was thinking about this and I was thinking about what would I use something like Tony Robbins, because he was the first book I read in that kind of area of things and I adore him. But what I think is the best book when I'm thinking about intuition is A New Earth by Eckhart Tolle. Because it's all about finding out more about your ego and how your ego is controlling things, and being able to look at your ego from an outside perspective and not letting it control things, because that's the biggest problem I find people have connecting to intuition, is that they don't know which is ego and which is intuition.
Yeah.
So once you recognize your ego, everything becomes so much clearer and easier. So A New Earth by Eckhart Tolle, I love it. It's just such a great book.
Do you know, I followed him for years. I've never actually read anything. I've read like blog posts and articles, but I've never actually read one of his books. So that is definitely going on my list as well.
Because his most popular book is The Power of Now.
The Power of Now, yeah.
But it's so difficult to read. It's heavy.
But that's what I've been told. I think that I don't mind a difficult book, but everyone that's ever mentioned it has said, oh, you can only read a few pages at a time.
Yeah,
Really
but A New
going.
Earth, yeah, it's so much easier to read. Plus, if you're interested, you can do the Oprah Winfrey has a podcast episode with every single chapter, which you can connect to. She does it with Eckhart. So you read a chapter, you listen to Oprah and Eckhart explaining the whole thing, and it talks you through the whole book. It's great.
Amazing. I love that that's so much more accessible than the thought of getting a stiff, heavy old book and getting drowned in it. So brilliant. Thank you for that, Lottie. Where is the best place that people can connect with you online? I will put all of your contact details in the show notes, but if there's just one place, where can they find you?
Always Instagram. So I'm Lotties_leap on Instagram. My website is www.lottiesleap.com, but you'll always find me on Instagram.
Perfect. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Ambitious Introvert podcast with me, Emma-Louise Parks. If you enjoy this show, please subscribe, rate, and leave a review on iTunes. As a thank you, one lucky reviewer each month will win a 60-minute one-on-one coaching session with me, where you'll get the clarity and confidence to attract your ideal clients. And if you know someone who could benefit from listening to the show, then please do share and help me reach as many fellow ambitious introverts as possible.